Now we can, yeah, I think I'm going to leave it there. Ngā mihi nui, thank you all for having me. Oh, I do want to say my maara's not that epic, especially after this recent storm, and we are coming into autumn. So a lot of the summer maara has been broken down and is now, I guess, being stored. But I am very excited to share with you all. Ngā mihi nui.
Thanks, Rā. Thank you so much for joining us today. And Matt, I'll pass it over to you to introduce yourself and take us through the learning bite. Tēnā koe e wha?
Awesome. Ngā mihi kia kōrua, and Rā, your garden is definitely very epic. We just saw it before this call started. It might just be autumn and it's going through its seasons, but it's beautiful. So I can't wait to see that after this. Ko putu ake toku maunga, ko rangitaiki toku awa, ko ngā te awa toku iwi, ko ngā tamuira toku hapu, ko Matt Perryman ho. My name's Matt Perryman. I'm from Te Teko, but I live in Tamaki. I work at Parakore, working on programs here, and this is our third learning bite on the topic of local kai mapping. So we're going to make a local kai map today. This is a chance for everyone now to get a pencil and a paper, or maybe a pen, to start doing the activity. We'll do a very short activity. It's real easy, but with a pen and paper, it'll be you can make your own local kai map. So let's just jump straight into it. We're going to kind of do a speed run version. This is an online module that you can do in your own time too. But for today's session, we'll just kind of speed run it, and then we'll move on to that. So I'll start sharing. Let me know if this is showing all good. Is that showing up all good, Apanui? Cool. Sweet. Yeah, so today's kaupapa is local kai mapping. And as we go, please use the chat to ask and answer any questions and share your whakaaro. It's going to be a relatively short one, but before we get into it, it would be cool to hear from you guys. If there's any kai that you guys have sourced locally that you can share in the chat, or something that you might source regularly in your local area, just something to start us off with. But the kaupapa of mapping, local kai mapping, it connects us with the whakapapa of our kai, right? And this is really important because supermarkets disconnect us from that whakapapa, and often we don't see where it starts from, whose hands it's passed through. And sourcing and eating local kai also nourishes our tinana because it's often more fresh and organic, builds mātauranga around mahinga kai, and also builds our community and local economies. It helps us to, disconnect from that global kai system and foster a healthier tomorrow for our tamariki and mokopuna. So this learning bite is going to explore our local kai sources, and it's different for everyone, of course, starting from our own backyards and then looking further into our communities, towns, and cities to identify where we can source our kai locally. Cool. So we'll move on to the second. And these are just instructions for when you're doing this online, so we can skip this too. Yeah, so get your pencil and paper ready. This is an interactive activity you can do on your own desk, so please do that. If you want, you can also do it on your phone. If you don't have a pencil or paper, you can just make a few lists for each of these different categories we're going to go through. But yeah, get your pen and paper ready. And this is kind of one for the online learners, so we'll skip that too. Same with this one. So let's just kōrero a little bit about why we would map local kai. And this is an interactive one. It comes up with a few different kōrero here. So it's about whanaungatanga, building stronger communities and supporting our local economies. It's also about kai tiakitanga, so minimizing our impact on te taio with less fuel and packaging. So the more local our kai, the less it has to go through, less transport it has to go through, right? It doesn't have to travel from like the States or wherever, ages across, using heaps of bunch of fuel and packaging too. So we avoid all of that, protect te taio. It also supports our oranga, so it provides us with access to fresh, organic, and nutritious kai, uplifting our food security and our resilience. And of course, it connects us with whakapapa, so knowing the origin of our kai and the hands that it's passed through. This is the hidden journey of supermarket kai, and I was actually going to pass to Arahanui to maybe kōrero about this. Is what we call the system of stuff. But did you want to share some whakaaro here, Arahanui?
Yes, ka pai. So when we buy kai from the supermarket, often there's this unseen journey that kai has come from. A lot of our kai in our supermarket doesn't even come from Aotearoa, despite the fact that we are a food basket. We grow a lot of kai, but a lot of that kai is exported overseas. And a funny story I have about that is during the COVID lockdown, I am aware that I believe we are the world's largest kiwi fruit exporter. So we export huge amounts of kiwi fruit. We grow huge amounts of kiwi fruit. My own whānau work at these kiwi fruit orchards across the Bay of Plenty. And when I went, and during COVID, I remember going to the supermarket and buying kiwi fruit, and it had a sticker, and that kiwi fruit had come from South America, I believe from Chile. And I was so shocked that we as a nation who grow so much kiwi fruit are importing kiwi fruit from South America. And the journey that kiwi fruit has had to come, thousands of kilometers all the way from South America. So many emissions have been created in that journey, because it's not just the boat, it's coming on a truck. There's multiple people, there's multiple stages involved in that journey. And at every stage, there's money involved. So that the cost goes up when we import kai that instead we could have bought locally. But also, it would have needed to be harvested so much earlier than it should have been so that it could survive that journey. So it's not even getting that full nutritional value that you would if you allowed it to ripen on the vine. And that is kind of the summary of our broken industrial food system. To maintain trade relationships, we import kai that we very efficiently grow on our own soil and create waste and create emissions in the process. It completely disconnects us from the whenua that grows this kai. If you were to have a kiwi fruit vine in your backyard, say, and you could go outside and you could watch the kiwi fruit grow. My parents have a kiwi fruit vine and it attracts lots of beautiful birds. We always have tui and toho sitting in there. And you actually get to engage with the kai, and you get to wait and let it ripen on its own and go out there and pick it. And the hands that have touched it, the distance that it has traveled. But when we buy from the supermarket, it's just this linear system of turning kai into a commodity to make profit off of. So it's just about being efficient, using fertilizers so that there's no holes in your kai, no blemishes. Your kai is not allowed to be ugly. If you've ever grown any kai ever, you will know that kai naturally is not perfect looking like it is in the supermarket. It's messy, it's misfit, and that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of that journey when we get to grow kai on our own. I hope I've done that justice, Matt. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, Rā Apanui. Does anyone have any whakaaro or pātai at this point? Because we're talking about like pretty massive system here. This is the global system that kind of governs our kai. And it's effectively colonialism and capitalism, right? And so the solution is decolonization, bringing it back to earth, relocalizing our food systems and our economies. So that's what this kaupapa is all about. And kai is such an important part of that system. So I don't know.
And one of the funny quips that we use in this wānanga is like, our tupuna could never imagine that you could be eating a banana all the way from South America in the middle of winter here. Like that's just not even something that we would fathom. Because we were very much so eating local food and eating in season. And when you eat in season as well, you're eating the nutrients that your body needs during that period of time. And it actually connects your puku deeply with the whenua to eat in season and eat local kai that's been grown in your local area. So there's a connection element to it as well. And there's a health element to it beyond just like looking at the emissions and the packaging used in the industrial food system. Yeah, any whakaaro on that? Feel free to jump in the chat if you have any thoughts, or feel free to unmute.
Yeah, for sure. Would love to hear from you guys in the crowd if you have some whakaaro. Otherwise, we might move on to the next slide, which really just talks about a couple of ways or where we could source kai locally. So there's lots of different places. There's maara kai, there's community gardens, there's wild berry bushes, whānau fruit trees. I didn't put these on here, but there's also like crop swaps, markets, local hunters, fishers, divers, butchers, grocers. The list goes on, and it depends on where you are and who you know, but it really is about building that community where we can distribute kai just locally within our own communities and make sure everyone's fed. Does anyone have?
Kia ora. I was just interested in sorry, Kim from Rotorua, interested in that shift, that seasonal, expecting that you can get anything every week and how would we, and this education is great, right? But how do we do that sort of as a more general push for people and spreading that through a community is get away from expecting it to be there every week in the supermarket and that be okay?
I think that's already happening because kai is getting more expensive because, to ship kai, and we can see at the moment with international conflicts happening, that it's exposing how delicate that system is and how fragile these trade routes are. And so I think that we're already seeing huge price increases of kai that's coming actually both inside the country and from outside the country. So I think there's already that natural desire to shift away from that reliance. Rā, I might pass this to you as well. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I guess my first thought would be educating people, telling them, like, we're asking the question, where does this kai come from? Have you thought about the whakapapa of the kai? And those of you who are friends with me on Facebook would have seen that was my most recent post as we move towards protesting against the GE bill. Sorry, just got to plug that. But yeah, getting people involved in growing food, because you start to have those conversations about your specific microclimate. Some people can grow bananas in Aotearoa. Here in Rotorua, where I live, I've seen a few banana trees around the place because they've got tinier microclimates than I do, where no frost happens, and so those things can thrive. So I think it's about connecting with community, going to the local crop swaps, meeting at the seed libraries, letting people know via your communication channels that you're really interested in supporting and pushing and learning more about this kaupapa.
There's also naturally been quite a pickup, I think, like even amongst the younger generation, I'm really noticing a desire for people to start growing kai. I've never seen, like, my own friends and whānau and cousins who have never showed any interest in maara kai are starting to get involved with it. My cousin is a really avid hunter, and he said that he has never seen so many people, inexperienced people, out trying to hunt. Not necessarily a good thing because there's danger, you need to be quite smart and safe when doing these practices. But his kind of reflection on that was people are struggling to put kai in the fridge, in the freezer, and in the cupboards. So they're branching out and they're trying to revert to these practices of our tupuna, essentially. And so, yeah, there's a desire. And so that's exactly why we're creating this platform, to bring people together, to share knowledge, not saying we have all the answers, but saying, hey, let's wānanga, let's kōrero, and let's see what tools we can access, what tools we can have in our kete to reduce the reliance on this food system, this industrial broken food system.
So cool. Awesome. Part-time, sorry if I missed your hand up in the chat. It's hard for me to see all the screens. But anyone have any other part-time or kōrero before we move on to the activity? Please raise your hand or just jump on the mic if you want.
I'm keen to hear oh no, we're going to do that in the activity. Sorry. Mute me.
Okay, all good. Let's move on to the activity then. And hopefully everyone has their pencil and paper ready.
Should I share the whiteboard?
Yes.
Oh.
Please. So this is roughly what it's going to look like. We've got 3 circles. You're going to see this again on our whiteboard. But it'll be awesome if you guys all do it yourselves at home, because this is local mātauranga. This is something that will only be relevant to you and your local rohe, but we're going to do it as a collective rōpū as well, to do a kind of demonstration on the board. Cool. Okay, so this one is super interactive. Please type in the chat, unmute yourself and share some kōrero. Basically, this activity is 3 circles: home, community, and town/city. And so these are the 3 different realms of our local kai that we can source from, that don't really rely on our supermarket system. And the whole point is to disconnect from that global kai system.
Can I read a comment?
Sure, yeah.
Sorry, I hope I've said that right, and I've actually come across you a couple of times before. And left an awesome comment that I just want to read. He said, they said also an interesting exercise to do a reverse mapping. For example, how much space in our urban settings is dedicated to the private transport compared to growing kai, or how much space is used to maintain really resource-hungry lawns, or rurally, where we are surrounded by thousands of hectares of industrial dairy farms, and there is literally zero kai coming out of those farms to feed the community. I think that's a cool comment to highlight. Tēnā koe, Urs.
Wow, that's awesome for Whakaaro, and thank you for bringing that up. I'd actually love to explore that activity too, because you're right, so much of our land is taken for whatever uses that we don't really need in our daily lives. Could be growing kai, but it's, I don't know, landfills or something.
And was used to grow kai, right?
Yeah.
Like these are kai, you know, places that our tupuna use to access and grow kai.
Cool. So everyone, hopefully you've got your own pencil and paper. So start by drawing a little circle in the middle, or a medium-sized circle, and that's going to be your home circle. And also in the chat, please feel free to add in some things and we'll put them onto the whiteboard here too. So in the home space, what we're going to be writing down is all of the sources of kai that you can think around your home. So it includes your garden. This might be kai that you're growing in the maara or windowsill. It could be from your fruit trees. Maybe you have chickens or other animals that you keep for meat, milk, or eggs, or anything like that. Or maybe you or someone in your whānau goes fishing or diving. So you have access to local kai moana that can go into the home space. Yeah, anything like that. And please jump on the mic if you guys have any whakaaro to share. We'd love to hear where you might be sourcing kai locally. We've got some examples in there. Maara kai and puha.
Feel free to add your own sticky notes on the screen as well. You should be able to access this and grab the sticky notes. So I've put maara kai and puha because puha grows naturally around my whare. And obviously I've got a maara kai. For community, I'm going to add rosemary bush because my neighbor has a really successful rosemary bush that I always pinch from. Well, I don't know if it's pinching. He lets me. So that's cool. That's community. You get to build a relationship with your neighbor when you know that you can, because he comes and helps himself to my tomatoes. I go and help myself to his beans. We have that sort of friendship. And that means when tough times come along, like when we had the recent storm, you know to look out for each other because you've already built that relationship. It's a really beautiful way to connect with people through their puku. It's a great way to make friends. And we really need to rely on communities in these times of struggle and in these times of uncertainty.
I can see a few people's heads down, hopefully drawing your kai maps up. Would love to hear your whakaaro. Maybe you're not drawing your kai map, but I'm looking at you guys. It looks like you might be. So maybe Terence or Patina. Do you have any thoughts you might want to share about what you're putting in the circles here?
Kia ora koutou. One thing I'm adding, we're in Taranaki, but one of our sisters lives in Te Wairoa, and she comes home every school holidays with her tamariki, and we are the beneficiaries of their wonderful orchard that they have in Te Wairoa, where avocados grow very easily, and there's citrus trees that is with amazing abundance, so much so that she is keen to bring it home to share with us. So we kind of have our calendar of what she brings at different times of year and what we are now sharing with her to take home to Wairoa. So she's making these trips anyway for wharangatanga purposes. It is a long distance, but we're making the most of those journeys to share kai between us.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And I see a few other kōrero in the chat too. Ona mentioned local seed library. Would love to hear about that. And Steve, the local crop swap groups that you might have around.
Should I put that in town and city?
Yeah. So we're gonna do it one by one each circle, but we may as well just kind of free for all here. And if you've got any
Sorry.
no, you're all good. They can do this anyways. So if we want to fill in anything in the community or town squares, please add your whakaaro to add some sticky notes or something in the chat.
Yes.
Just at your invitation, I thought I'd better jump in then, Matt. Get intimidated here. No, I appreciate your comments and interesting exercise. What we've done is I used to be an academic and policy advisor, and then we downsized and moved to a lifestyle block in Tiniroto out here on the East Coast for about 10 years. So it was a big learning curve there. Fortunately, we were nearby to Kohanga Gardens. And so they were very helpful and a good motivator for food security tactics and practices. We've downsized again to Gisborne. We live in a suburb of Gisborne, which is a microclimate, but we have adapted raised bed gardens, which are very useful. We've also got fruit trees. We have feijoa, various things here. So it's very feasible to do it in a reasonably small size garden. Lots of stuff grows. We also, the neighbors thought we were crazy, but we also brought in, given climate change, which obviously you were alluding to, Matt, indirectly. We managed to bring in a 5,000 liter water tank and hook that up. So just again, talking about resilience, I think the neighbors began to realize after we had a couple of droughts that yeah, resilience was a bigger challenge than they thought. So, and community-wise, we're beginning to network, but we've noticed in this immediate community that we're in Otakaiti, there aren't the kind of networks which I think some of the other folks that you've been talking to are part of. So I think we here have been pushing for a city-wide network, more connected than exactly. Anyway, that's me.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Yep.
Love the mention of collecting water tanks. That's a huge one. You can't really have a marakai if you don't have sufficient water. We need drinking water. Totally. That's a big one. And I love how you also said that it got other people thinking, because not everyone is actually aware of how these climate events are growing in their frequency and intensity, and what that actually will look like for our access to clean drinking water and to kai.
Yeah, I think it's a real challenge. We noticed in Gabriel, we did some research. Some of us got together and began to organize an elderly seniors climate action group about 18 months ago after the cyclone, because we did some research and found that there were some gaps in the city, particularly among non-Maori, for of getting access to food and water and so on and services after a crisis. So I really taitoko with this kaupapa. We need to start plugging those kind of gaps with meaningful networks of people who can exchange food and know where to get it. Not just be part of a community garden, but if you're on your own, particularly elderly, we really need to think about networks of elderly. Anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Share something about community circle. A few years ago, I decided I wanted to bring the practice of rewana making back into my whānau. So I started that, and initially it was to feed hungry families. And then at some point on that journey, I thought, oh, I might just see if there are any local hunters or fishermen who want to trade, because I no longer have the resources to do that. And being a single mom and having a young boy that just loves eating meat, I thought I'd give that a try. Threw that up on Facebook and it popped off. So anyone out there who's got a skill in baking, that's another way that you can help build community. We've been doing this now for 3 years. And so, yeah, I very much love trade as opposed to giving money. This Arohanui. But yeah, another way to build smaller community. If you can't get to the community spaces and you really only have capacity to do a one-on-one exchange.
I love that. So true. Bring back trading.
Toko. And there's some beautiful whakaaro coming through in the chat too. Thank you all for sharing everything. At this point, we're really fleshing out this collective one, but I'd love to hear if anyone has any local ones that they want to share, maybe one thing from your home community and town space. And then we can move on to Rā because it's already 11:35. But yeah, we've had some awesome whakaaro come through. Thank you all so much for the kōrero.
I just want to spotlight Terence's kōrero really quickly as well. I was multitasking and not very well, sorry. I was trying to fill out the circles and populate it with what people were saying. But I just want to bring up that you talked about our elderly community, and that's just such a really important point for us to talk about. We absolutely cannot leave our elderly and kaumātua and vulnerable people behind, because not everyone, as Rā said, not everyone has the skills or time or money. Like, it still takes money to dive. It still takes money to fish and fill up a boat, you know? And so it's not about us doing it all on our own. It's not about me being an expert fisherman, an expert hunter, an expert diver, an expert forager. It takes a lifetime to perfect those skills. And so if, like Rā said, if your skill is baking rewana, that is a brilliant skill that people will be willing to trade for. And that is the basis of the trade economy that our tupuna really operated on. And I love this idea of trading kai for mātauranga with our elderly people, because they have so much mātauranga and knowledge about gardening, about fishing and hunting and all of these skills. And they would love a kōrero. They would love for people to come and bring, you know, excess potatoes from your garden and just sit down for a cup of tea. I think that's so beautiful and important to incorporate our kaumātua and our koeke in this kōrero. Nō reira, tēnā koe, Terence. Yes, and Sonia said our tangata whaikaha as well, tēnā koe. Yeah, good kai is also good medicine. Ai, he rongoa te kai. Anything we're missing here before we pass to Rā? I go back to Matt's point. Any really local, maybe even niche kind of suggestions here? I'll add some to get us started. I live in Rotorua as well, so we're really lucky to have access to our lakes. So fishing, eeling, I'm going to add in here.
Does anyone have something on their map that they don't think anyone else would have? Something that would be really local to your rohi or your town or village? Would love to hear that.
A really cool exercise you can do while people populate their thoughts in the chat, a really cool exercise you can do as well is have a look into where your traditional gardens were in your rohe. Like, I know for us, it is Tūhaurangi and at Waka, we gardened a lot at what's now kind of the community of Te o Tonga. That used to all be a garden. And so that gives you a really good insight into what areas are really productive lands, because our tupuna really thought that through. And so we can kind of trace that back. And unfortunately, a lot of those lands are now farms and they're now houses. But yeah, it's cool to do that kind of, I guess it's a bit of that reverse local kai mapping to look back, to look forward. Where are those kind of kai spots that our tupuna really relied on? Roadside stalls, yes. You can get really good deals on those roadside stalls too. I think of Te Teko. They're just like absolutely pumping with watermelon and oranges and all the goodies. Ka pai. Let's wrap this up in one more minute, and we'll pass over to Rā, who's going to take us through this beautiful tour of her maara kai.
Awesome. And keep the whakaaro coming in the chat, whānau. Thank you. Hopefully you've all got your own little maps forming with your circles, and you can use this to kind of guide your mahinga kai practices at home too, and keep adding to it as you connect more with your local kai.
Beautiful. I'll stop sharing now.
Yeah, cool.
Cool. Moment. Oh, I thought I just cancelled the meeting. Okay. Thank you so much. That was a brilliant wānanga. I hope that that was useful for you all. And thank you for your contributions. And I really encourage you to continue this practice at home. It's a really cool exercise that you can do with your whānau. And you can even do this with emergency response. You know, what's your risk areas? What's your plan that you have in place when we think about climate emergencies? How are you going to support your neighbours? If you've got elderly neighbours, how are you going to work together? So yeah, really recommend you take that kind of inner circle and then take it broader approach with, you can use that kind of approach for lots of different things. Yeah, but maybe have a kōrero with your whānau, with your tamariki. Really important to engage our tamariki on these kōrero. And yeah, keep building and growing your personal local kai map. Nō reira, it's a little bit later than I intended. Apologies, Rā, but I'm now going to pass it over to you to take us through your beautiful tour. Tēnā koe, Rā. Is she there? Oh, there she is. I'll just read some comments while you get yourself ready. Shelley said car sharing when traveling. Shared energy and resources, so important. Are you there, Rā? Jump in when you are.
Aroha mai te whānau. Being the age that I am, I'm having a bit of difficulty with technology. But Rā Apanui, can you just let me know if you can see where I'm at right now?
Yes, I can see your compost bin.
Cool. Yeah, it's going to look, I just want to say it's going to look a little bit haphazard for people who don't know the way my mind works. But as we go around, I thought I'd just explain why things are positioned where they are. I have compost bins all around the whare. I do want to start by saying I am very privileged to have amazing landlords who will let me grow kai on the whenua. And over the years, it's turned into growing kai for all of us in this little neighborhood here. So this whenua gets a lot of rain in the winter. Often it's quite flooded, so I've decided to start composts here about 6 months ago because I'm going to turn that into a turtle patch. Turtle really likes to have wet feet, so rather than creating compost somewhere else and dragging it 10, 15 meters to my new spot, I've been working on creating the compost where I want to build the next maara. I collect a lot of rainwater and we have a lot of that recently. So when these fill up, I bring them over here and store them, or I'll just pour them straight on the maara. And I really love to grow our rongoa Māori, and we've got some kumaraho here in Kawakawa. They really love the shade, so I've just utilised this space for them to have 1, protection from wind and frost, and 2, protection from sun. I've got a couple of worm farms here, so I do a lot of different types of composting. A smaller one, a large one.
If anyone has any questions for Rā, feel free to chuck them in the chat and I will read them to her if you have any questions about how she's done what she's done here.
I live on a shared property, and one year I was gifted a couple of veggie pods, and I thought, what am I going to do with these? And decided to turn my side of the driveway into a maara. So over the years, this has grown up. So I've got a little seed house here where I raise my seedlings and also my microgreens. This compost here I'm putting this one to rest for the winter because it provided quite a lot of kai over the summer, but I can already see some self-seeded lettuces coming up and also some saffron, which would be quite interesting. I like to practice letting things turn up and see what they do. If you want to grow in raised beds on a concrete slab, I have found these to be really helpful. They're nice and tall, so they're about 1 meter by 60 centimeters, and maybe about 50 centimeters tall. And so I filled that mostly using the hugelkultur method, if you know what that is, and then maybe the top 30% would be really good solid compost. Because this is a driveway, we've got a lot of concrete which creates thermal mass, meaning here in Rotorua, where I live, we get a lot of frost that gets really cold, but having these gardens set up on the driveway helps to keep them warm in the cooler months. If you don't want to spend a lot of money, you can get something like this from Bunnings. I think they're like $20 or $30 now. And you can grow quite a lot of kai in there. I've got some basil, a couple of lettuces and some spring onions. And I always have flowers for our pollinators. If your landlords don't want you to grow a messy garden, you can get some terracotta pots that also look pretty cool. And these ones are really good for growing some herbs like thyme. You'll see a lot of in my maara, because I let the puha go to seed, and I let that just self-seed everywhere. So over here, puha has kind of just self-seeded, and my lettuces as well, and mustard greens. So if you've got limited space, another thing you can do is create a trellis. So you can grow things like peas up there. Peas really love this cooler climate. So I've joined these two with a trellis. In the summer, I grow beans up there, and in the winter, peas. And it's just a way to have that kai using limited space. I always have something for our pollinators. And I really wanted to harvest the kumara today on this kōrero, but we have had so much rain, I really don't want to risk doing that. What have we got? Another veggie pod. So this is I've dedicated this to jalapenos and basil being a companion plant. As you can see, it's going to seed, so I'll have heaps of that to share. I do want to mention that I'm an avid seed saver. I only grow from heritage seed, and I'm more than happy to share within the community. If anyone's local to Rotorua and would like anything, give me a buzz. Got a comfrey patch here, which I use to feed the maara. Another one over there, and I let this lawn become a full-on kamo patch over the summertime. It's all died away now as we come into autumn, but enough compost. Over there, I like to create little hubs for our pollinators that need a space to overwinter safely. So we're quite fortunate every year we get bumblebees nesting on the property. They don't like to nest in the same place every year. So I'll just drop a few random things around and hopefully they can find a space to hang out in there. I grew a lot of kanga and kamo in this space over summer, so I'm letting these beds rest for the winter. All I've done is chopped everything down, added some comfrey, and then covered it with weed mat, and it'll sit like that for probably the next 6 months until I'm ready to plant in something for spring and summer.
Us through resting the whenua e hoa. Why do you rest the whenua?
Because kanga and kamo are considered very heavy feeders, so they take a lot of nutrients from the soil. It's a bit like when we think about nutrition for our bodies, or we've had a really, really busy week or day, and we need to refuel. So we have a kai. Our soil needs that same kind of attention. Like all the nutrients have been taken up, and now we need to be able to give back. And one of the ways we can do that is let it rest. We can feed it a lot of organic matter. So all of this will be chopped up, composted, and end up on that bed again next year. There will be lots of people on this chat who could probably explain that a bit better than me. But yeah, just giving it that time to not be producing or expected to produce. So in agriculture or monocultures, or a lot of the food that we get from the supermarket, those lands that food is grown on doesn't get any rest. It's just expected to produce all the time, and that's why they bring in a lot of synthetic fertilizers and those kinds of inputs. So when you're growing in the backyard and you want to give back to the whenua, that's a really good way to do that. I do understand that for some people it's not possible if you have a small amount of space.
But it comes back to the companion planting, I think, that you referred to as well, because there's also certain companion plants that once you've grown, someone could probably give a better example in the chat, but once you've grown it like a certain kai, like for instance, my father-in-law is a really incredible green thumb, and he'll grow potatoes, and then he won't grow potatoes there again. He'll plant something else instead that will not draw from the same things, like not
yeah.
Yeah.
So crop rotation is,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
I'm letting this little bed rest because it grew some kumara for me this year. So I've literally just chopped up a whole bunch of comfrey, layered it in there. The reason I'm covering with a weed mat is this is a UV stabilized weed mat. So the sun doesn't get through, but also rain and airflow does get through, and our soil needs moisture and oxygen. Was that someone else asking a part-time? No.
We've just got a beautiful comment in the chat about sharing kai. Someone said they moved to Pukekohe during COVID, and they would walk around and drop kai off in like people's letterboxes, and then suddenly that was being reciprocated, and people were dropping off lemon cake and buckets of feijoas and venison. So it really built up an incredible community. I also wanted to read one more comment, actually from Matt, who said, love this reminder that the whenua is not a machine and needs rest. Totally. There was a beautiful kōrero about that, Rā. And it also reminds me of people. People are not machines. People need rest too. We can't just constantly be producing like the capitalist colonial world asks of us. Anyway, back to you, Rā.
Yeah, no, all good. Beautiful kōrero. I thought I would kind of end the tour on microgreens. So for people who don't have a lot of space, microgreens are a really good way to get nutrition into your body. And you don't have to use a flash seed tray. I do want to say I basically try and scavenge everything that I have. So I think this was gifted to me a few years ago, but I've got some ruruho seeding in here. Looks like maybe some broccolis and brassicas over here. So microgreens will give you way more nutrition as opposed to actually anything you grow from home is going to give you way more nutrition than what you buy from the supermarket. But these tiny little things here can give you a lot more nutrition than the actual kai itself. Like if you let that grow into a big cabbage, you'd still get nutrition, but as a microgreen, you would get it when it's this young. I also grow peas, and this is just a glass Pyrex dish from inside. If you're interested in knowing where you can get microgreens, like I save a lot of seeds. So this is my cos and coriander, but sometimes I'll have to buy it in. King seeds, I got the peas from. There's some sunflowers in there and cabbages, but I would like to guess that with this food crisis that's coming due to the fuel, all of these things are going to increase in price exponentially. And so if you're looking to, I guess, in a way, sort some kai out for your whānau for the future 6 months to a year, now could be a good time to start looking at buying things like these. I intend to grow out a lot of these seeds so that I won't have to continue buying them in the future. I thought I'd show you my giant kamo. I decided to harvest that. That one's going to be saved for seed, but I needed to harvest it because we've had so much rain here recently. Things have started rotting on the vine.
Can I share a couple of questions from the chat with you, Rā?
Sure.
So there's two. So the first one is, where does everyone source safe seed raising and potting mix? And the second question is, how do you prepare microgreens to eat?
Oh, so I'll answer the second question first. In terms of prepare, it's literally just a matter of coming along and chopping those off. I'll let these get a bit bigger first, and then you just chop off the tops and eat. If you're wanting to sow them, I have just sowed this with a layer of compost at the bottom, maybe halfway of compost, and then some seed raising mix on the top. You don't have to use compost at the bottom, but because I have quite a bit of it, I have done that. What was the first question, Ehua?
Where do you source safe seed raising and potting mix? And one more question from Matt: why do you not harvest kumara after the rain? Matt, could you please chuck the survey link in the comment now?
I haven't harvested the kumara because kumara needs a curing window after you've harvested it, and what that means is traditionally it's harvested when you know there's at least 5 days of sun coming, so it can be laid out in the sun, and the sun can convert the starch from the kumara into sugars. And what that also does is it doesn't just give you a nice sweet kumara, it thickens and hardens the skin for storage. So we've just had a storm, we've got lots of rain coming. I've decided I think my kumara is going to be okay because I'm growing it in a raised bed, and that bed is quite sandy. So the water from all of this rain isn't going to sit and rot the kumara. If you were growing kumara in the ground, you might just decide, actually, there's a storm coming. I'm just going to pull it up, harvest it now. I've seen people dry their kumara inside with the fire going and letting sun come through the window. There are lots of different ways you can do that. Or if you've decided, oh, I don't really need to store my kumara dry, I'm going to freeze it. Like, I've successfully frozen kumara for the last 3 to 5 years. So some of the kumara, I will just give it a clean and throw it straight in the freezer. You can literally add that straight to your stews or chuck it straight in the oven for roasting, and it comes out beautiful. Seed raising mix. You can make your own seed raising mix if you're growing your own compost, but if I am feeling quite lazy and I don't want to do that, then I'll just go down to Bunnings and get a Dalton's premium mix. I found that gives me a really good strike rate for sowing seed or seed germination. I've noticed since this fuel crisis that mix has gone up by $7. So I thought, oh, it might be time to start making my own.
That's a really interesting reflection. So we are going to close up this corridor shortly. That really happened really quickly. That went through really quickly. And I'd like to give a couple of minutes for any questions. So if anyone has any questions for Rā, please chuck those in the chat and I can read those to you if that's helpful, Ehua. And I really love how other people are jumping in and answering. Like when Sarah asked, how do you cook? Like, do you need to cook the microgreens? Urs responded, they're usually eaten raw in salad or in a sandwich or something like that. Yeah, a nice, easy way to get your nutrients. He also said that there are organically certified mixes available, but they are quite pricey. And we also have a comment about Wairoa, Kohanga Gardens near Wairoa, very strong advocate for security and a great source of seeds. Ka pai. So any more questions for Rā before we close off? Or any closing comments from you, e hoa?
I would just like to use this time to talk about the GE, the Gene Technology Bill, and what the government is trying to push through. So if you are somebody where whakapapa of your kai is really important to you and what you envision for your tamariki and your future moko, this is something that New Zealand has been pushing back and fighting. It's been 25 years, I think, since they started. Like our tūpuna were successful in keeping GE products out of our country. But this government is really wanting to push things. So tomorrow there's a free seminar, tomorrow evening. I can send a link through to you, Aroha Nui, and when you maybe send out the recording, you can add that. If you don't really know what the GE Bill is about and want to know a bit more, you can tune up to that seminar. I am very, I guess, passionate about trying to keep GMOs out of our food because seed really shouldn't be, it shouldn't be tattooed with the seed already knows what it needs to produce. It's already got its own technology inside of that. And so when we're thinking about kai, I like to think that we know that this kai hasn't been tampered with and that we've let nature do its thing and maybe just helped it along the way a little bit.
Beautiful kōrero and important call to action for all of us. I have been seeing Dr. Jessica Hutchings doing a massive campaign against the Gene Technology Bill. So we will, in the follow-up to this webinar, we will send around the recording and the survey link, which is also in the chat. We would love if you could fill out this survey link to let us know what you enjoyed, what you'd like to see more of in future wānanga, and how we can improve these. This also helps us in the reporting to kind of make the case for why more funding is needed to circulate this mātauranga in our communities and build these skills at a real grassroots level. So we'd really appreciate if you could take a couple of seconds to fill out that survey. Just checking if there's any last kind of questions or comments.
I think I can put the chat in. I think I might be able to put the link in our chat so that people can copy it before they jump off. Let me just try this.
Oh, yes, that sounds good. I will just take a minute while you do that. Oh, you're so quick, Rā. There is the Zoom link there for the webinar that Rā was talking to. Thank you, Rā. I just wanted to take a moment before I close this with karakia to thank you all for coming. It's really important that we have these discussions and have a platform to have these kōrero to normalise eating in season and growing our kai and not relying on the supermarket. And yeah, really pleased that we had such a engaged wānanga. We've had a really active chat and lots of mātauranga coming through from our attendees. So really, me mihi ka tika ki a koutou katoa, and really want to take the time to thank you, Rā, for joining us. We are so blessed and humbled with your mātauranga, and really, I don't know why you said your garden wasn't epic. That was epic. And I love to see a garden in its natural state as well, because it's not always like the most perfect planter boxes and tidy. Like, gardens are messy. This is the reality. Food is not meant to look perfect. It's meant to be a bit wonky. That's the beauty of it. And so thank you so much. I hope that you've all kind of gained something. I hope that you're going to leave with this plan for you and your whānau and feel really inspired and empowered to give it a go. If you haven't before, just give it a go, give it a try, and learn to know your neighbours and share kai. I think that's the first step. Yeah. Thank you all. Any comments from you, Matt? Kei te pai if not.
Just want to say thank you to everyone for sharing your whakaaro and participating, and Rā for your awesome maara tour. And shout out to Aroha as well, of course, for facilitating. Awesome.
Oh, tēnā koe, Matt. Thank you for your contribution for creating the Epic Learning Bite. Matt is very much so the brains behind this platform. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, I'm going to close us off with karakia so you can enjoy the rest of your day. E rua te wānanga kua kitea te aroaro whenua e whirawhira nei, kia mau ai te mea tata hei pautoko toko mō mātou e manoko nei. Kia u, kia mau, kia tīna, tīna, haumi e hui e.
Ai ki e.
Ai, ki e, mauri ora tātou.
Kia whaitora e te whānau.